Hello, professionals. My name is Rico Aladdin, and I'm the founder of Professional Lunch. Today, we are going to talk about the entrepreneurial mindset. And who is better to help me take this conversation to a new level here than Onnolee and Jessica? Ladies, introduce yourself for the Professional Lunch audience. Onnolee, you go first.
Sure. I'm like sort of scared to start talking because he sounds so good when he starts, right? Your voice that's so nice. So I'm scared to follow you. I'm Onnolee Nordstrom, and I'm the Osborn Chair of Entrepreneurship here at NDSU. So I direct the Center for Entrepreneurship and Family Business and run a lot of our entrepreneurship courses, our minor and our certificate, and a lot of other programs.
Wonderful. Jessica?
Yeah, I am Jessica Vold. I'm the Engineering, Entrepreneurship, and Innovation faculty member in the College of Engineering here at NDSU. So I serve the entire College of Engineering. I teach entrepreneurship courses to scientists and engineers, some demographic of people that don't always think like the rest of the business world does. And then I'm housed within mechanical engineering for my expertise in materials engineering.
Wonderful. As I mentioned, we're going to keep the conversation about the entrepreneurial mindset. Ladies, please tell me, what is the entrepreneurial mindset?
That's a great question. And that's a question, kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
There is, lots of sort of different interpretations and different ways that you can define the entrepreneurial mindset. I would say, I define it very broadly. So it's that, the ability to problem solve and think critically. And, really, I kind of talk a lot about that starting with a problem and finding a solution. So, it's broader than just thinking. Lots of times I think we think of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial mindset as starting a business. I would say, it's that, but it's a lot more than that too. There's, entrepreneurial mindset within organizations. And really, I would argue that, there's an advantage of everyone having that ability to problem solve and ability to innovate and think critically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jessica.
Yeah, I'm not just...
I agree. I think for me, it's individuals being able to go out into the world and kind of look at the world differently than other people do, and identifying where there's pain points or where there's a place that we can make someone's life just a little bit better. And yeah, sometimes that means you might go start a business, but I think especially for my engineering students, that's just how you're a good engineer, right? You find that place where you can make a difference, and then you go and you create a new creative solution that makes someone's life just a little bit better.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when we think about entrepreneurs, we think about people who have multiple businesses, not necessarily people who are solving a problem. So, you make the difference. So why is entrepreneurship matter? Why is it valuable?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good question. And I mean, I would say, I lots of times think about, we tend to say to young people, high school students, we say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about that is that they say, I don't know the exact stat, Jessica might know, but 60% or something of the jobs that those students are going to have available to them, don't even exist yet. Yeah. So we're really kind of, asking the wrong question when we're looking at, just putting them into kind of this traditional job and in the traditional world. So I think entrepreneurship really plays a great role there, because if we have this more entrepreneurial mindset, then, there's that much more ability to adapt, ability to innovate, think of new problems and what problems need to be solved.
Yeah, wonderful. Jessica, anything to add?
No, I think that really kind of hits it. I think about, they don't have these jobs. Yeah, they're going to create them. And I think, for engineers, entrepreneurship is just important, because that's how we come up with new creative things, right? If we don't have engineers or individuals that are thinking entrepreneurially, we're never going to make the advances in technology that we have today, right? The iPhone never would have existed if Steve Jobs wasn't entrepreneurial, or even within your Bobcats, your Case New Hollands, your John Deeres, you're not going to have innovation in tractors or in equipment if you don't think about, the farmer spends too much time unlatching this door. Let's make it a quicker latch system, and that's how we make the changes that make society that much better.
You said that the jobs are not there yet for the entrepreneur. So how do they know that, let's say a student is in school right now, how do they go about finding out these type of jobs or opportunities?
Yeah. And so I guess what I mean by that is that I don't know that what they think they want to be, what exists doesn't even exist yet. So if they can be, open-minded enough and, entrepreneurial thinking enough to be able to change and pivot and see some of those opportunities, then I think they're, really well positioned to, move forward into the workforce. So I think that's a really important thing for them to think about. And I mean, I work with a lot of organizations in Fargo-Moorhead area, and they're, constantly coming to Jessica and I and saying, we want students that can think entrepreneurially, and we want students that can solve problems. And that I think is really important for the students to know, that even if they're not going to set up their own business, they're going to be appealing to employers if they can talk about how they have some experience in entrepreneurship. They've taken some classes in entrepreneurship. Jessica can probably talk about, we worked with some students a few years ago that actually said, she got her job because she had that entrepreneurial experience and courses on her resume.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. I can see you both are passionate about entrepreneurship. So what got you into the entrepreneurship field?
Well, that's a really good question.
That is a good question, because lots of people say to me, they say, well, so, if you started, you ran your own businesses, started your own businesses. And I actually haven't. I've done, some consulting work. So, a little bit like startup sort of world there. I've worked with a number of startups. I actually kind of stumbled into this world. It was sort of interesting. My undergrad degree is agriculture. So I'm kind of I think a good example of like somebody who's kind of evolved and sort of reinvented themselves. I worked for a number of years in the agriculture industry. I was the student that was like sent out to, walk across fields and identify weeds and figure out problems. And I spent a lot of time in combines and a lot of time in the agricultural world. Then I actually went back to school and did an MBA, which turned into a PhD. And I actually studied a community of people called the Hutterites that some people around here would probably know. And what's really interesting about the Hutterites is they're this very unique, sort of very closed communal community that's been very entrepreneurial. So they've, invented and innovated and done a lot of really entrepreneurial things. So studying them actually really kind of got me into this sort of interesting world of entrepreneurship and studying entrepreneurship. And then, after I did my dissertation, this entrepreneurship position was available in NDSU. So kind of just rolled
into it. Yeah. Very cool, Jessica. What gets you into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I have a background in engineering. Actually, I have a background in aerospace engineering to start with, and then mechanical engineering, which is really materials engineering and science. After I got my PhD, so I got my PhD and my master's from NDSU here in mechanical engineering. I actually went and worked for my graduate advisor's company. So he spun a company out of our research that we did in the labs on campus into a business, and he runs that business here in town. So I went to work for him for a few years. Towards the end of my industry experience, I actually split my time between two companies. And the other one was also another company that was spun out of NDSU as well, out of research in a different department. And while I was working for my graduate advisor at his company, we actually went through the National Science Foundation's Innovation Core Program, which we'll talk about probably a little bit.
Yeah.
We have an Innovation Core Program here at NDSU. And I went through the program, and typical engineers, we like to talk about what we do. We don't like to talk to other people. That's kind of scary to us sometimes. And it's a program that forces you out of your element and do customer interviews to think about what's that pain point, right? It's really teaching engineers empathy. And so we did 100 of those interviews in 7 weeks. And by the end of the 7 weeks, it was my favorite part was actually cold calling someone and talking to them about their issues just every day. Like, how do you pick the colors for the label on this water bottle? And, maybe there's something that dictates that color that's out of their control. Well, can I fix that? Can I make it the actual color they want with my technology? And I loved that. That was my favorite part of the Innovation Core program. And I loved that even after we were done with it. And so then a donor donated some money to the College of Engineering to increase entrepreneurship from the faculty, the staff, and the students. And so I applied for that position. And then I started there in October of 19. So yeah.
There you go. Do you like it?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what entrepreneurship classes does NDSU do you offer here?
Yeah. So we have an entrepreneurship minor, and we also have an entrepreneurship certificate. And so the students can do a 16 credit entrepreneurship minor, which has a number of different, we've kind of really built the program out in the last couple of years to make it sort of very broad, and so that there's a number of different options and a number of different paths for students. So we kind of have a path through, if a student is involved in a family business, so they could take, a family business class and, do the entrepreneurship minor kind of with the family business focus. We have a focus really on the engineers and the scientists. So we kind of have a really nice path that involves taking a lot of classes over with Jessica in engineering for those engineering scientist students. We also have classes available for students that are really interested and passionate about social entrepreneurship and solving social problems. So, there's a path through for them too. So we've really kind of, I think, built like a sort of pretty robust, way for students to take a number of different courses and classes that really meets their different interests and lets them explore.
Wow, wonderful. And do you have anything, Jessica, to add to that?
No, I think you kind of touched on all of it. Minor in there. So,
okay. So in this program, so what are some of the coolest ideas that you've heard from students that they pitch to you?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So, I would say, honestly, my favorite part of being involved in like the entrepreneurship courses is actually seeing the ideas that they come up with. Because across the last 6-7 years that I've been involved with the courses, there's just some like really fun ideas. At this stage with students, lots of times they haven't totally worked it out. So it's not completely feasible, I wouldn't say. But, I really push them to like, let's figure out an idea, let's develop that idea, and then, kind of worry all the details and how it actually gets done. I had a group of students a couple of years ago. It was a couple of engineering students that were working with some business students. And they had developed they were developing this cup, and they were going to market and sell it into like bars in the area. And the cup it would change color if the drink got roofied. Right? So like very fascinating, because when you think about like sort of the problem statement and what the problem is there and how that could solve, this problem. So the cup would actually, they were kind of working out the details. The cup would actually change, would turn blue if it was roofied. So that was one that has always stuck with me. So I thought like are really
wow, this is
cool.
Exciting.
Right? Yeah. Another one that I thought was really fun, again, we hadn't totally worked out the details, but you can sort of see what we have our students do is thinking about a problem. So they realize that in seniors' homes, people really like to have pets, and sometimes they get lonely, and so it's really nice to have a dog, but it's hard for them to be able to walk their dogs. So they had a robot, a dog walking robot. Now I know there's like many issues that could arise with the dog walking robot, but I thought the sort of idea there, right? And thinking of the problem and how, so, the seniors were going to like, meet in kind of the lobby, and you'd click your dog onto this dog walking robot and it would like walk the dog so that the seniors could still have the pets. Right? So those are just a couple fun ones that popped to mind.
So, I'm curious. So, those ideas, these are great ideas. And obviously, if the idea with the glass turn a certain color, if it gets roofied, I think, that's a safety issue. But, for young people who go out, they want to be safe. And so those ideas, have they gone far, or have they
Yeah, so those two specifically haven't actually like progressed. That was kind of the, idea, and we sort of taught them about, how do you pitch it, and, is more about thinking about the problem, and then, so they would need to do a lot more, sort of thinking about their market, and so they didn't like progress to actually like creating it.
Okay.
The engineers didn't think they kind of had it figured out. That was where I can't remember if I called you Jessica or something. I was like, couldn't this actually work? Yeah.
Oh, man. This is really good. Jessica, what have you heard?
Oh, I get lots of them. So I teach one of the courses as part of the minor. It's called Engineering 310. And so it's a course of 60 students, and they all come in and they work in groups of 4 on something that they have to create a new product or service or something like that for the class. And so I get a lot of ideas every spring with that class. And it's interesting to see that, oftentimes it's easier for them to start with what's my own problem, right? So you see them solving their own problems with all of their ideas. And then by the end of the class, it's kind of, they're thinking more globally, like how I impact the community with those things. I think one of my, I have a couple favorites. I have to pick one. I think one of my most recent favorites was, it was during COVID, and they were talking about water bottles. And so it was shortly after we had just come back to campus face to face. And they're like, well, how do I make sure that no one else drinks out of my water bottle? What if they're going to get me sick? And so they had come up with this idea that they're going to develop a water bottle that when you picked it up, your hand on it would unlock the lid and you could drink out of it. And when you let go of it, it loaded it up again.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, so it was like a safety thing. And it was very, very relevant to them, right? They're now in this classroom with 60 other people that they're not used to. Usually they're used to being at home behind their computer. So they solved their own problem for them. And then they thought more about, oh, that'd be great for like little kids at school, right? How many of them have their water bottles at their desk and like it falls on the floor and whose is it? Well, they can pick it up and they can unlock their own. As they kind of thought of that. They thought like globally with it.
Oh man, I'm really curious now. Those ideas, just out of the ordinary, those ideas come, right? So I really like.
Another fun one. I'll interrupt you.
Yeah,
This was I helped judge in Jessica's pitch class. This was a few years ago, and this was one that I was like, I really want them to do this because I hate this. In the winter, it gets so cold and you got to put gas in your car and you got to get out and your hands get all cold because you got to do the comp, right? They had invented this arm that was going to like automatically like put the gas like into your car. I love that idea because in the winter, I'm like, I will pay my son like $25 to go and gas in my car for me.
Believe it or not, many people will do that because I really don't like the cold.
No. Yeah.
So, so what have your entrepreneurship students gone to do after they're done with the minor or the certificate?
Yeah, we I have some entrepreneurship students that are now graduated that are sort of all over the place. There's one student. He's actually now on my advisory board for the Center for Entrepreneurship. So I get him to help us. Demercy is his name, and he graduated a couple of years ago. He has started a business. He's actually now living down in Florida. He's generated like well over $1 million in startup funding, and has a really successful. He actually was just a month or so ago accepting an award from Bill Gates Foundation.
Oh, wow.
And some money from Bill Gates Foundation, and just super, super amazing student. And his idea actually is he's building a software platform, and it's to help teachers better understand the students in their classroom. And it's kind of this program that the students will help, they'll answer some questions, and then the teachers will sort of have a better understanding of how the students learn and, what's the best way to kind of like interact with those students. And you can sort of see if there's some problems, even if there's some mental health problems. So his is fascinating, and I'm super proud of him and all the great things he's done. Another student of ours that you see around the area quite a bit, Hannah Lang, she's now with the in the government, doing work with like venture funding. So she's responsible for giving money out to entrepreneurial startups in the area. Nathan Marcotte, another student that was one of my first groups, great student. He's now working with Emerging Prairie, helping work with entrepreneurs. Another number of students are, some of them are, now working, have, various jobs kind of in the area. And I think just sort of gaining some expertise and experience, thinking that they'll then eventually start their own jobs.
Wow, wonderful. Do you have an example, Jessica?
No, I don't have any specifically that have started their own companies from the entrepreneurship minor. All my entrepreneurship minor students have graduated from the College of Engineering have actually just gone on to get jobs in existing companies. But they've gotten those jobs because they put that entrepreneurship minor on their resume. And the company went, oh, you did entrepreneurship and engineering. Like, oh, you think differently than everyone else. And so they get jobs. So they stand out against the average engineering applicant. So we had a couple of students that didn't go through the minor, though, that have started their own companies that sell the products they've developed. And one of them actually took it through a senior design project. He built this like trap shooting device that would actually like randomly throw the targets because he wanted to get better at trap shooting. And so they built a prototype for their senior design project. And then he went on to try and sell those as a company.
No.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. So is it hard to recruit students for the entrepreneurship program here?
That's a good question. Yeah. And I mean, I would say, I think that's actually part of the reason why it's so great that we're doing this podcast and getting the word out. Because I would say probably a lot of students don't instantly think like, you know, oh, entrepreneurship, or let's take the entrepreneurship minor. And I don't know that students know it exists kind of, you know, as much as I would hope that we could kind of, you know, get the word out and get them more involved. There is a sort of within the high school space, there is also a lot bigger push kind of for entrepreneurship. And you're hearing, you know, across the state, you know, from the government and from the education system and our President Cook, you know, it's one of his strategic priorities is really driving entrepreneurship. So I think it's starting to get thought about more. But I would still say, yeah, it's a bit tough to recruit. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, that might lead, I don't know if Jessica, if you have anything to add to that, but which leads to my next question: how do you promote it? And how do you promote the program to other students? I know we're gonna be blasting this all over LinkedIn and Facebook and even YouTube. But how do you, as a department, promote that program?
That is a great question too. And I mean, I think I'll speak for Jessica and I, and you can correct me. But we're profs, and we're not great at. I'm not great at social media. I'm not great at that kind of promotion and things.
Agreed.
We don't. I don't have people that are doing that. So you know, I'm sort of managing some of our LinkedIn, and I'm really not doing it well. And some Facebook, again, not doing it well. But yeah, so we've been, you know, trying to kind of get the word out. This past year, I had some companies do some videos for us, and you know, just trying to sort of do a better job of driving that.
Yeah, wonderful. Jessica, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so in engineering, I think, I mean, it's even harder to pull students into entrepreneurship and engineering because you've got a very rigorous curriculum to begin with. That's just jam-packed from day one to the day you graduate.
Yeah.
And so I know Onnolee and I have done a lot of work together to really make sure that we're not adding a ton of classes to our students in engineering. So they can get that minor, which is a couple extra classes that might not count towards their major. And so I really spend my time kind of focusing on the students that are already here. So I go into a lot of intro classes. So that first freshman year, a lot of our programs have a course our students take to kind of get used to college. And so I'll go into a lot of those and give a presentation about entrepreneurial mindset and what that means within engineering. And it doesn't mean you're taking a risk and risking everything you own to start a business. It's just a different way of thinking, and it's going to make you a better engineer in the end. And so if you come and take those courses, we can then put on that resume when you apply that you've got that kind of thinking. So I kind of do that with them. But yeah, it's just a lot of kind of working with these students. I end up a lot. So I teach the Engineering 310 course like we talked about. And I get a lot of students in that class because it's a technical elective for some of our students. And they take it because it's not technical, but it's a technical elective. So I think it's going to be this easy class within a very hard engineering program. And they get into it in day one. I'm like, who in the room has to think like an entrepreneur for your job when you leave here? And they all just kind of sit there and stare at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, every one of you does, right? You're all going to go out and design things as an engineer. That's thinking like an entrepreneur. And you can kind of see the light bulbs just go off in the room as like they sit and think about it like, oh, I do have to design things as an engineer, like develop something. And so by the end of the course, they're all kind of like, so can you tell me more about that entrepreneurship minor? I want to put that on my resume. Like I want to get the actual like, you know, certificate or the piece of paper that says I have it. And so I've pulled a few of them in that way.
Wonderful.
I would say that if I could just add another thing too, I was thinking about is I sort of notice in the like I moved down here from Canada, the Midwestern culture, like the students are just a little bit more tentative. They're really keen to take advantage of opportunities. But one thing that I've sort of noticed or think I'm starting to understand is that they really kind of need to be asked or invited, right? And so I've sort of been trying to do more of that where I say, hey, you know what, you'd be really good at this. And they just need just that little tiny bit of encouragement. They don't like, you know, don't see a video or they don't, read a post and think like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of that. But if you say like, hey student, like you'd be great in this, then they'll come in and
More likely to.
they'll try it.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Wonderful. So is there, I don't know if I should, answer this, but is there any point to make entrepreneurship a major? Because now you mentioned a minor and a certificate.
Yeah.
Any plan on that?
We do get asked that. And I wouldn't say it's a big push right now for me. I wouldn't say it's a big priority. I sort of feel like entrepreneurship, and other schools do that. Entrepreneurship kind of exists nicely, I think, as a minor, as sort of an, add on to other things that they're doing would be just sort of my personal opinion on that. So I wouldn't be pushing to do that. I would say that's not really one of my immediate visions. But, I think providing more opportunities for students to do, extracurricular programs in entrepreneurship or just get involved in sort of like a piece of entrepreneurship would be more kind of the direction that I would probably see us going.
Yeah. Well, and I really like the fact that it's a minor because we want to make it, so that all majors can have a chance to get a minor or a certificate, and then because of how valuable this is. Any last word? Anything you want to add when it comes to the entrepreneurial mindset?
No, I think I feel like we said a lot, right? I would just say so that, any students that are out there that are, interested, or just kind of like what I said earlier, like, my door's always open. We would love to have you in the program. It's not a program that, has prerequisites or I wouldn't say, I don't want to make it sound like it's an easy class, because I don't want to have students just taking it because they think it's easy, but kind of to Jessica's point, it isn't, like a heavy kind of class where you're gonna sail or drown. Like, you do the work and you're gonna enjoy the course, I think, and be able to succeed in it.
Wonderful. Jessica, what do you add?
The only thing I would add is that, for students that are already doing entrepreneurial things, we do have the Innovation Core program. And so it's a great entrepreneurship kind of aspect that's not necessarily a certificate or a minor, but it's something they can try and go through to get a little bit of coaching, a little bit of teaching about what it is to be an entrepreneur. So we run cohorts. I'm gonna get this wrong, but I think 4 times a year. 4 cohorts a year. They're only 3 weeks long, so it's relatively short. They go out, they get to do some customer discovery and some kind of teaching and coaching on how to do those talks, how to sit and listen with empathy and not talk about what we're doing, but just listen to what people experience every day, and then think about how is it what I'm doing can impact that particular person. So we're called the Great Plains Hub. We've got a website, and so students can go look at it and check.
Wonderful. And I really like at the beginning, just to touch on that, being an entrepreneur is not just about starting a bunch of business. Yes. And what were you two saying about is about finding a problem and being a solution. If you could just, make a short little summary of that for me, just because I want to retain that myself.
Yeah.
What's that about it? Yes, go ahead. You go first.
Yeah. So okay, to summarize, I would say, entrepreneurship is broader than just starting a business, and especially, broader than starting like a economic business. That's great. We absolutely should have students and people doing that, but entrepreneurship is more than that. It's about solving problems, and those can be social problems, those can be economic problems, those can be innovations. So really, like, the entrepreneurial mindset is something that everyone benefits from, and everyone benefits from learning.
Wonderful. Jessica?
Yeah. So I would say, I do a lot of work with the Kern Family Foundation. So they're an organization that puts on the entrepreneurial mindset into engineering education. And I love the way that they kind of frame the entrepreneurial mindset. They call it the 3 C's. It's about going out into the world and being curious, asking questions, looking at the world with a contrarian view and saying, how can I make it different? It's then coming in and it's saying, okay, how do I make those connections, right? How do I connect the problems that everyone has or society has, or that I see, into the technology or the things that I'm doing for my job, or the things that I have passion about, right? What's I'm passionate about, and how can I make that impact? And even within like education or like in, higher ed, it's making the connections between the classes, like how does all the content fit together? And then it's coming in and asking, how do I create value, right? And what value is it I can deliver to that person? How can I make their life better? How can I make my community better, my dorm better, right? Just kind of think small. How can I make my life better? And now if I make my life better, how is it that what I develop for me? How can I make, those around me, like people in this room, how can I make their life better? And then just kind of growing from there. And that to me is the entrepreneurial mindset.
Wonderful. That was the last word. Onnolee, anything else?
No. Thanks for having us on.
No
It's
problem.
wonderful to talk to Rico.
Yes, thank you very much, Jessica Vold. Did I say that right? Yes. Onnolee Nordstrom. I'm so glad to be here to have them talk about the entrepreneurial mindset. Now, what I've learned today is the fact that being an entrepreneur is not just about creating businesses. So it's about finding problems to solve. And there are always many problems in the world to solve. Now, this is Professional Lunch. Remember, it's up to you to make today a great day. Have a great day.